Thousands of years ago, Jesus went about and cured impossible illnesses. He restored sight to the blind, he even returned feeling and use to long-dead arms and lame limbs. His miracles enlightened those around him and caused many to turn from their sinful ways and pledge their lives to God. This angered the devil, seeing so many people whose lives he destroyed and affected turn to God and find hope and love and happiness. He saw the works that Jesus did, the way he healed others, and how he showed the world the glory of God. Then something clicked in the devil's head. He realized the best way to spread his bile, his hate, his strife, was to imitate the acts of God. There is no better example of evil imitating the righteous than the Emissary of Eris in Warframe lore. Today, I plan to delve into the lore of the Emissary Arlo and his cause, and even talk about how the story was left unfinished, and how this nightwave in particular is the most extreme example of how dangerous the infested can be, and why the fact that this story remaining unconcluded is the biggest threat to the current origin system, bigger than any other, and by far for the most part. Before we can get into the consequences and dangers that come with the emissary and the infestation, we must first talk about his origins and how all of this developed. And of course, with this being a Nightwave story, we have a steaming humongous helping of Nora Knight here to help us in talking about this story. In case you're unfamiliar with the infestation, I think it's important to drop some important background knowledge on their origin and just how dangerous they are before getting into this story. In Warframe 1999, the Technocyte virus was introduced, and it's essentially an earlier and much weaker version of the infestation. And if you guys want to know more about them, I have an entire video on the Technocyte on this channel. Depending on if Warframe 1999 is directly involved with our current timeline in the game, this would technically be the very first instance of a version of the infestation. However, if it was, the Technocyte was nearly completely wiped out by the radiation wars that would have taken place before the Orcan Age of the Origin system. The infestation as we know it in present day of Warframe was originally created by Orc and bioengineers during the Old War, the war between the Sentients and the Orcan. Because of the power of the Sentients, the Orcan were extremely desperate for any sort of weapon they could use to fight back against them, which led them advancing their bio research, particularly in an incredibly dangerous bioweapon they discovered some time ago, which was the early infestation. After increasing its power and making it ready for war, they would launch biobombs full of infested tissue at Deimos, which was currently being conquered by the Sentients. The infestation proved far more powerful than their wildest dreams. It was able to easily overpower Sentients, although it seemed unable to infect them, and it quickly repelled the Sentient invasion of Deimos. However, the infestation also proved far too powerful for the Orcan to control, and now there was a third faction fighting within the Old War that seemed to be the destined winner, regardless of what happened between the Sentients and the Orcan. You see, the infestation is a hive mind that can literally infect anything it comes into contact with, whether it's biological mass or some sort of technology. Either way, it can now infect it, destroy it, and then add whatever remains to its ever-growing hive mind. Not only that, it's incredibly easy for the infestation to infect whatever is around them, often only needing to stick one tendril inside an object or have someone breathe in spores to then fully convert it to their mass and ultimately to the infected hive mind. The only weakness the infestation has is inability to infest warframes, which were created using the helmet strand of the infestation. And because of this vulnerability to getting infected, the Orcan were eventually able to largely contain the infestation to two planets, being Eris and Deimos, with Eris obviously being important to the theme of this video. Anyway, that's a quick crash course on the history and danger of the infestation. There's literally hours of different things to talk about when it comes to infestation and theories around it, but for now, this explanation serves the purpose for this video. The whole story of the Emissary of Eris starts with an individual named Kenga, and far away from the actual planet of Eris, or a dwarf planet for all of you annoying guys out there. Look, I'm calling moons and dwarf planets, bro. I'm not differentiating them, and I just butchered that word, shut up. But I don't care what anyone says, I'm just calling them planets, okay? I'm also fighting a non-existent argument, because literally no one has ever complained about me doing that before in one of my videos, so take that, non-existent losers. the awesome and beautiful viewers of this video who will hopefully subscribe right now also hate you. Anyway, back to Kenga, the one who kicked off this entire segment of Warframe history. Kenga is originally an Ostron, a group of people who live around and in the plains of Eidolon on Earth, with most Ostron living in the settlement Cetus. So we can assume that Kenga probably came from Cetus, or at least somewhere around there. I'm just kind of guessing. We're not like confident. He just kind of looks like he's from Cetus. That's why I'm saying this. He wears Cetus looking clothes. Anyway, he's on Earth or somewhere around there. But anyway, he got attacked by the infestation. Assuming he next near Earth, I'm not really sure where he got attacked by infestation. That's all we know. And while he did escape and manage to live through the encounter, he was unfortunately infected due to a heavy intake of spores during whatever conflict he was involved in. This caused those around him to knock him out and throw him in a cage. Those who did this, though, obviously felt some sort of loyalty to Kenga and refused to just outright kill him, and instead threw him in a cage, traveled all the way to Eris, and threw the cage to the surface of Eris, which, interestingly enough, is probably a worse fate than just outright killing them. But hey, I wouldn't want to kill my friend either, I guess. Eris, in case you didn't know, has been completely overrun with infestation, and besides for Deimos, is the only planet in the Origin system that is completely overrun with the infestation. There are no permanent settlements there besides for infestation settlements, which aren't really settlements, but instead just huge bio and technological mass, which is a bunch of mass, pulsating mass. Lots of pulsating mass, like the pulsating. Anyway, after landing on Eris, Kenga finds himself able to explore the rarely seen surface before succumbing to the infestation. Because he was already infected, the infected present in the area ignored him while he traveled around the surface. Eventually, he came upon a small boy that was on the surface of the planet. Kenga surprisingly recognized the boy, likely due to the boy being an Onstron as well. An Onstron has been thrown to Eris after dying to the infestation nearly 3 years ago, and yet here he was, same before Kenga, in completely perfect health. It's also possible that the boy was from Solaris. However, due to Kenga recognizing the boy, it's more likely he was originally from Cetus. However, we do not know for sure. He was wearing kind of maybe more similar to, Solaris clothes. However, the fact Kenga knew who he was kind of leans towards him being from Cetus. But we don't know. That's the point. We don't know. Anyway, the boy's name was Arlo, and according to Kenga, he was a complete mute, unable to speak. He did, however, hold his hand out to Kenga, and Kenga took it. Once taking his hand, Kenga was completely cleansed of all infestation, all sickness, all disease, and was a perfectly healed individual. This was completely unbelievable. This was a miracle. This was an act of God. The boy who had once died has resurrected, with the ability to heal all of those around him. The infestation that was present on Eris didn't dare approach him, and stayed away from Kenga as well, even after he was completely cured. After realizing the power in this boy, Kenga then knew what he had to do.
Spreads like a month-old salad with genocidal intent. Swallows everything it touches, making monsters from meat or metal or both. Well, these days it's mostly contained. Spores as old as stone, derelicts drifting in forgotten orbits. So it was with old Kenga, somehow exposed and promptly cast out. Woke up on a blessed cage drop down to Eris. But should some sad soul catch the gray vein, well, every culture has its plague dogma. But maybe there's something more to this infestation, something we all missed. Turns out, Kenga didn't find void in that hell nest, no. He found a survivor. Little boy, Arlo, died 3 years ago, yet there he was. Lost his voice, but gained his life. And somehow saved old Kenga with the slightest touch of his slender hand.
Arlo performed miracles, but was unable to speak, unable to spread his word, unable to allow the world to know of his healing and power. This was unacceptable, Kenga thought. Such a powerful and pure healer, who could even cure the infestation, was completely unknown. So Kenga took it upon himself to speak for Arlo, to spread his word, and spread the power that this small boy held. He told the world of his magic powers, his ability to heal all illnesses, not just infestation, and he was extremely effective at getting the word out. The unapproachable and dangerous Eris, where almost all ships avoided traveling around due to the infestive derelicts floating around in its space, was suddenly seeing a lot more travel. The doomed, the sick, and those who had given up on life saw this new Emissary of Eris as their very last chance. I mean, who could blame them? If you were told you had cancer, a very aggressive form that would result in your painful death no matter what you did, wouldn't you too travel far to find a rumored cure? Even if it's just a chance, even if it's dangerous? You're doomed to die anyway. And in the world of Warframe, where magical things and miracles do occasionally happen, it is absolutely a chance worth taking. Even if failure meant death due to the infestation on Eris, you are going to die anyway. But due to this line of thinking, large numbers of desperate people began traveling to see Arlo on the surface of Eris just based on Kenga's word. Eventually, people began reporting that Kenga was telling the truth, and that all their ailments, no matter what they were healed by Arlo. As unbelievable as it was, the results spoke for themselves, and more individuals traveled to Arlo. Many dedicating themselves to spreading his word and healing capabilities. However, this dedication was not something completely innocent, and cracks in the religion of Arlo began to spread.
My mother was a cynical woman, smart as she was cruel. Nora, she said, no disease spreads faster or further than the ones in our head. She was talking about ideas. Mine was that old Kenga and his Wonder Boy would have been splayed out in some bio-trader's lab by now, or blood studies for the Grenier Command. Dreamers, I was wrong. Kenga's gray vein was just the beginning. White lung, parasitic liver, clone rot, even bone spurs. Turns out this kid, Arlo, is a healer. So many questions. An idea like that is like a flare dropped in vol gas. Now the sick and curious are flocking the rails to see this Emissary of Eris. And who speaks for Arlo the Mute? Why, old Kenga, of course. No more the outcast. It is he who is spreading the word of Arlo's gift. Even you, dreamers, may soon hear it.
We think of dedicating yourself to religion, or a belief, you might get baptized, like many Christians do, and as I plan to do eventually. Or you can visit the Mecca out of dedication if you're a Muslim. And lots of other different examples of showing and affirming your dedication for all sorts of different religions or beliefs, such as not eating pork or beef, depending on your belief set. However, there has always been those who attempt to take their shows of dedication to the extreme. Something I remember my mother told me was that at a church far out in the hills, a pastor would allow himself to be bitten by a poisonous snake, saying that God would save him, and allowing himself to be bitten was proof of his dedication to God. While he was lucky enough to survive, there have been stories about those doing the same thing who have not. Evidently, some churches take things too far. And there's examples of this in every single religion and belief system. The Arlo's faithful would be no different. Those who travel to see the healer, even those who weren't sick, began purposely inhaling and consuming the spores of the infestation around Eris, or on Eris, so they could show Arlo that they had complete belief in his ability to heal them, even from the disease that meant certain death that was the infestation. Yeah, so this is insane, and people are complete and utter idiots. To quote Nora Knight, old haulers and new hopefuls out there are proven just how smart most people aren't. I mean, while we only know about people huffing the fumes to ensure that they're loyal to Arlo, I'm sure people were doing even more insane things as well. They were probably cutting off their own arms and stuff. It's just headcanon though. I'm not sure if that actually happened, but I do feel like it definitely could have. I mean, if people were huffing fucking infested spores, what's cutting off an arm or two in comparison to that? Because of these fanatics. Shout out my channel, like and subscribe. A small channel and desperately need the clout and success, thank you. But anyway, because of these fanatics, the Emissary of Eris was gaining a massive following. They would have their afflictions cured, and then go around the origin system, spreading the word, or well, the lack of words, because Arlo can't talk. Anyway, but they were spreading the word of Arlo to anyone who was willing to listen, or the word of Kenga to be more specific. As you can tell, this is absolutely starting to sound like a cult. I mean, it started to sound like a cult a long time ago, like at the beginning of the video, but now it absolutely is. I mean, people are literally drinking the Kool-Aid on Eris now, which is pretty insane.
Whether you're bad news first or bad news last, tonight I got you covered, 'cause bad news is all we got. This emissary's word is spreading fast. A hot fever. Some are going to extremes to prove their devotion, trying the spores for themselves, and they're finding it too. Some lunatic spikers jacked the solar nav and flagged the derelict zones for all to see. Old haulers and new hopefuls out there are proving just how smart most people aren't. Yet Kenga's ranks are growing, arming themselves for the safety and security of our emissary, setting the stage for a great assembly to come. Buzz is, Arlo will break his silence. Till then, dreamers, check under the bed. A fresh brood is sprouting up along the rails. And it seems they have the scent of those blessed by the emissary's touch.
With recruitment at an all-time high, Kenga made an announcement to the most loyal disciples of Arlo, telling them that soon Arlo would speak, and that you wouldn't want to miss it. I mean, I honestly wouldn't want to miss it either. You're telling me the mute boy that can heal literally anyone is finally going to speak on who he may be or how he has these powers? I definitely wouldn't check it out though if I was in the Warframe universe, because I'm not insane. But I mean, for the crazy people, this would have been big news, especially if you knew someone who may have been healed by Arlo. Eventually, Kenga dropped the date for this huge moment, and hundreds of people began flocking to Eris. Possibly thousands, maybe even millions. We don't really get the numbers. Probably not millions, so that's a lot of people, guys. Like and subscribe, we'll get there someday. Anyway, excited and anxious to finally hear their new prophet speak. Eventually, a huge mass gathered on Eris, and according to Nora, there was only standing room in the assembly hall where Arlo was allegedly supposed to speak for the very first time. Before Arlo spoke, Kenga hushed the large, anxious crowd before taking his mask off and revealing a heavily infected face. It looked as though he was never healed. In fact, he looked like the infestation had gotten 10 times worse from the moment of when he claimed it healed him. After showing the assembly his true colors, he began laughing as Arlo opened his mouth. Instead of speaking though, a large black tentacle type appendage made its way out of Arlo, and it slowly began ripping him apart to the horror of the gathered crowd in the assembly hall. The mask was off, and it was clear Arlo was no healer, and he hadn't actually ever healed anyone. Instead, he would just infect everyone who came to him for healing, which I mean, did heal them of like cancer and stuff, so I mean, he did heal them, but only because the infestation killed it, and he converted their body for use for the hive mind. But yeah, whoever in the crowd who wasn't part of the infestation was quickly converted by all of those who were. In mere moments, hundreds, if not thousands of individuals were corrupted and infested, and worse beyond that, all of their ships and haulers were still on the surface of Eris, in perfect working order, which obviously presents a massive threat to the entire Origin system. Because of the Emissary of Eris, the infestation had hundreds, possibly thousands of new individuals to their ranks, and on top of that, had an entire fleet of ships free for the taking. And well, they would be taking them. After the horrors of what happened at the assembly, the whole system was in danger. The infestation began sending out the ships they captured from Eris towards nearly every single planet in the Origin system, creating a massive and imminent threat towards literally everyone. This threat was eventually culled by the Tenno, whose warframes are immune to the effects of the infestation, making them the perfect exterminators. Also to be clear, warframes and Tenno can still be killed by the infestation, they just can't be so easily infected like literally every other mechanical living thing can be. and since Warframes are insanely overpowered, the infestation really didn't have a ton of hope in stopping this extermination.
Y'all did see this coming, right, dreamers? Surely did, but not like this. A grand gathering before the emissary and his speaker. Standing room only. Bodies pressed to bodies. A great overheated mass breathing as one. Waiting for their beloved healer mute to speak. Kenga hushed the crowd. He shed his mask, and there he was, laughing at them. Sick as the day he was banished. More. His retribution was at hand, born of a virus spreading further and faster than spore and space ever could have. Arlo. And in that stunned silence, Arlo himself made a sound. Not a word, but a stifled gag. A swollen choke as he opened his mouth. And there it was, pointed, black, a tongue, but not, snaking and bulging and splitting him apart. I looked away then. I had to. But that sound stays with me. Not the sound of human terror, bad as it was, but what came after. The grinding wet, the rattling flutter, the congregation converted in the truest sense. Dreamers, you all got your work cut out for you. Though this movement has lost its head, the body still lingers. It's a bad cycle, dreamers. Arlo's devoted had a party and you're on cleanup detail. Derelicts are threatening every settlement from Mercury to Eris. And my sources say you're uniquely qualified to contain them. Meanwhile, I've been thinking, not about Kenga, but about what he actually found down there. Arlo, whatever he was. Some kind of lure? An evolution to bait us in? Is there more to this infestation than fangs and acid? I know what my mother would say. The people saw what they wanted, heard what they hoped, and human nature did the rest. Still, I'm hearing rumors. The mass on Eris is in turmoil, and nobody, but nobody wants to check it out. It's seething. And if it's not thinking about this whole ordeal, baby, it's feeling it. This is Nora Knight, saying for now, dreamers, so long and hold on. And listen, should you ever happen upon some vacant-eyed little kid someday, whatever you do, don't take him home.
Something that I neglected to directly mention earlier, but could have been implied by what I said, was that there's all sorts of different strands of infestation. So finding a new type of infestation is usually a big deal. It's never been as big as a deal as finding out about the infestation that had infected Arlo, in my personal opinion. The reason for this is that generally the infestation is rather easy to spot, with those afflicted appearing extremely corrupted and sick, serving as a big warning sign about the dangers that they present. Obviously, this isn't the case when it comes to whatever infestation happened to infect Arlo and Kenga. They both look completely healthy while spreading their word, along with all their devotees that they ended up infecting. Well, at least they look normal and healthy for a while. Eventually, the infestation would take over and completely corrupt their figures, with the Zealoid prelate being a prime example of this. A strand of infestation that's able to completely hide its presence, even if it's just for a little, is absolutely a system-wide danger. I mean, Arlo and Kenga had thousands of people coming to the most dangerous planet in the entire system in droves, and people coming were then quickly infected by Arlo. And then were able to go spread the word of Arlo for a while themselves, because it genuinely looked like they were cured. which is absolutely insane. Imagine if every single strand of infestation had this ability. If they did, literally every single person could be a potential hidden threat. You literally couldn't walk out of your house or ship or whatever without fearing for your entire life. I mean, every living thing or technological thing could literally just touch you and assault your nervous system with toxic fumes that kill you and cause you to assimilate into the infested mass. I don't think there could genuinely be a scarier threat in the current Warframe universe. Yes, there might be a bigger threat, which I'm not sure if there is, but there might be some bigger threats. However, I challenge you to find a scarier threat. A threat where every single one of your neighbors, friends, associates could secretly be a monster, waiting to pounce on you and infect you with their disease, causing you to lose your own conscience and join the overpowering hive mind. It's even more terrifying to consider that Nintendo never fully exterminated this threat, and it's possible for this strand to return at any moment. While Nintendo did kill Arlo's strongest soldier in the Zealoid Prelate, Arlo and Kenga have never been hunted down and killed, and it's likely that their strand of infestation is still going strong, and perhaps even teaching the entire hive mind of the infestation how to better mimic the healthy non-infected. The conclusion of the Series 2 Nightwave, or better known as the Emissary of Eris, left a lot of questions unanswered. While the Nightwave culminated in defeating the Zealoid Prelate, a lot of other scenarios were left undone or unfinished. This is a particularly strange ending, seeing as though this new strand of infestation wasn't really eliminated, and it's been left alone for years now to regroup, fester, and regather its power. Nintendo never actually really interacts with the infestation vessels that were Kenga and Arlo, the originators of this new form of infestation. It's also kind of strange to me that this Nightwave culminated with the Zealoid Prelate fight, because for the most part, the Zealoid Prelate wasn't that important lore-wise, and he wasn't particularly special besides being one of the ultra-devoted followers of Arlo originally. This does keep a trend going of Nightwaves never really having a full conclusion, with many questions related to the Wolf of Saturn 6 being unanswered. However, its conclusion was much more satisfactory than that of the Emissary of Eris even. I mean, we literally know nothing about what has happened to the new infestation strand, what ended up happening to the originators Arlo and Kenga, and how much is spread even with Nintendo interfering. We aren't sure how long this infestation can remain hidden and make its victims appear healthy, maybe even with it being indefinite, and possibly the infestation strand is like a sleeper cell, where the victim remains completely healthy and appears unaffected until it finally activates. There are so many questions that we don't have the answers to that's pretty insane. An Emissary of Eris would make an easy story piece to come back to for DE if they ever wanted to. In my opinion, the Emissary of Eris is by far the most interesting and entertaining Nightwave that we've seen so far, and it's also one that has the largest potential effect on the Origin system, and would be the easiest to revisit. I'd love for DE to do this someday, and from what I've seen from forums and other things while researching, a ton of people agree with that. That's all I have for the Emissary of Eris, one of the most interesting Nightwaves ever created, with by far the most dangerous implied consequences if it isn't properly contained for the entire system. Let me know what you guys think about the Emissary of Eris, and if I missed anything that you think is important. I had a ton of fun researching this video and fully immersing myself into the Emissary of Eris story, and brainstorming about what that would mean for the Origin system if this new strand of infestation became the standard for all other infested strands. I hope that you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it, and it really helps the channel. On top of that, leave suggestions for different types of lore you want me to cover. If I'm interested in what you commented, it might be the next thing I make a video on. Before we go, I want to give a huge shout out to my 3 members, Panagoides, Tantazoisis, Jay, and SignUpKing5000, to take supporting this channel to the next level. Again, thank you all so much for watching this video all the way through, and it's, a huge support to the channel. Stay blessed, stay happy, stay safe, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Goodbye.